All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling web development. We've got a great source to work with, the Complete Web Development Roadmap by Programming with Mosh. This video's got a ton of info.
It does. It's really comprehensive.
So we're going to break it down, figure out what's really important, for someone who's actually trying to get into this field, not just like, oh, here's a list of skills. It's more like, why should you care about this? What are the challenges? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, we'll go beyond just the what's and into the why. We'll talk about potential pitfalls, things that can trip people up, and even some strategies to help you stand out. Kind of like a cheat sheet for success,
I love that. Okay, so right off the bat, the video jumps into front end versus back end. I guess for people who are totally new, can you just explain what those even mean?
Absolutely. So think of it this way. When you visit a website, everything you see, everything you click on, interact with, that's the front end. It's all about the user experience, the look and feel, making it visually appealing and responsive. The back end, on the other hand, is all the stuff happening behind the scenes.
Okay.
It's the engine of the website. It handles things like data storage, security, and the logic that makes the website work.
So it's like the front end is the storefront and the back end is all the warehouses and logistics and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And the video recommends starting with the back end, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. Why is that?
Well, there's a certain logic to it. When you start with the back end, you kind of get this deep understanding of like the core, the foundation of how a web application works. It's like understanding how a car engine works before you even try to drive it.
I see. You're building from the ground up, so to speak.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the goal is to become a full stack developer, right? Someone who can handle both front end and back end.
Right. And that's where things get really exciting because full stack developers, they're the ones who can see the big picture, understand how everything connects. They're like the architects of the web. But, just like you wouldn't try to build a house starting with the roof, you need to have those individual skills first.
Got it. So strong foundations on each side first.
Exactly.
All right, so let's dig into the back end. The video talks about a bunch of different programming languages, JavaScript, Python, Java. I mean, it's a lot. For someone just starting out, it can feel totally overwhelming.
I know, right? It's like, where do you even begin?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You don't need to learn every language out there. Pick one and really focus on that. Become really good at it. It's about depth, not breadth.
Okay, so one language at a time. But how do you even choose? Do you just pick whatever sounds cool?
Well, there's a bit more strategy to it than that. The video suggests checking out, like job postings in your area. See what languages are in demand. Are companies looking for more Python developers, more Java developers?
So do some research and let the job market guide you.
That's the idea. Figure out what skills will make you employable in your specific area. And then if you're still struggling to choose, maybe you're seeing a mix of everything, Python is a good starting point, generally speaking.
Why is that?
It's known for being very beginner-friendly. It's got a clear syntax. A lot of educational resources use Python. Plus, it's versatile. It's used in web development, data science, all sorts of stuff.
Okay, Python. Got it. What about Java? That one always sounds kind of serious.
Yeah, it is. Java is known for being really robust and scalable, which makes it popular for large-scale applications, things like finance, e-commerce, that sort of thing. And it's also often taught in computer science programs.
So it's kind of got that academic credibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Java. So we've got Python, Java. What about JavaScript? The video mentioned that it can be used for backend, but I kind of felt like there was a but there.
You picked up on that, huh? Yeah, JavaScript can be used for backend, but it wasn't originally designed for that. So you might run into some, quirks. Like, why does this do this weird thing? It's just because it kind of evolved into a backend language.
So it's like it has some baggage from its past.
Exactly. But hey, knowing that, you're already ahead of the game.
I like that. Okay, so we've got some contenders, Python, Java, JavaScript. I'm guessing you're going to tell me to pick one and stick with it for a while.
Absolutely. The video recommends 2 months, and I think that's a solid time frame. Focus your energy. Don't try to learn everything at once.
2 months, laser focus. Makes sense. But then the video throws this whole other thing at us. It's not just about coding, right? There's this section on, essential skills, things that go beyond just knowing a programming language. I was surprised by that. I thought it was all about mastering the code.
It's a common misconception. But honestly, those extra skills, those are the things that can really set you apart, especially when you're first starting out.
Okay, you've got me intrigued. What are these secret weapons?
Okay, so first up, we've got version control. This usually involves tools like Git and GitHub, which, I know those names can sound a bit intimidating at first.
They do, like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah. But really, it's not that complicated. Think of version control as like a way to track changes to your code and to collaborate with others. It's like having a time machine for your code.
Oh, that's interesting. So you can go back to previous versions.
Exactly. You can see who made what changes. You can even merge different versions together. It's super helpful, especially when you're working on a team.
Yeah, no more sending files back and forth with like version 12 final, really final, in the file name.
Exactly. And the good news is you don't need to become a Git master overnight. Just focus on the essential commands. You'll probably use like 80% of the commands 20% of the time. Just master those.
The 80-20 rule.
Yeah. A couple of weeks of practice should get you comfortable with the basics.
Okay, so 2 weeks for Git and GitHub. Check. What's next?
All right, now we're going into data structures and algorithms. This is where things can get a little more theoretical. And it's something that a lot of self-taught developers, they kind of struggle with this part.
Why is that? It seems so abstract compared to, like, actually writing code.
It is. But it's crucial because it teaches you how to think like a programmer. You're learning how to organize data efficiently, how to solve problems logically.
I see. It's like the mental framework for good coding.
Exactly. It's a big deal in technical interviews, especially at those, like, big tech companies.
Oh, so this is how I get my foot in the door at Google.
Potentially. It's definitely a skill they look for. I'd say dedicate a good month or two to this. It might feel a bit dry at first, but trust me, it will pay off in the long run.
Okay, data structures and algorithms, 1 to 2 months. Noted. What else?
Next up, we've got design patterns. These are like blueprints for solving common problems in software development.
Design pattern. Wait, is this about, like, making the code look pretty, choosing the right font, that kind of thing?
Not quite. These are more about the structure and organization of your code. Think of them as like tried and true solutions that have been developed over time.
Okay, so they're like best practices, basically.
Exactly. There's even a famous book, Design Patterns, by the Gang of Four.
The Gang of Four? That sounds kind of cool.
It is a classic. It can be a bit dense, but just knowing that it exists as having a basic understanding of design patterns can give you a leg up.
Okay, the Gang of Four. Noted. What's next on our back-end adventure?
All right, now we're getting into databases. This is where all the information is stored, the heart of any web application, really.
Databases? Okay, I've heard terms like relational databases, NoSQL databases. What does all that even mean?
All right, let's simplify it. Imagine a spreadsheet with all your data neatly organized in rows and columns. That's essentially what a relational database is. They're great for applications where data integrity is really important.
Okay, so like banking, financial stuff.
Exactly. Now, NoSQL databases, they're more about handling large volumes of data that might not be as structured. Think of things like social media feeds, sensor data, anything that's constantly changing.
So relational for structured data, NoSQL for more, I guess, dynamic data.
Exactly. Now, when it comes to actually learning, again, focus on one to start. For relational databases, MySQL is super popular, well-documented, good for beginners. And for NoSQL, MongoDB is a good one to check out.
So MySQL, MongoDB. Got it. But how do you, like, communicate with these databases?
Right. Well, there's a specific language used for relational databases. It's called SQL, Structured Query Language.
Cool. I was imagining something way more complicated.
Yeah, the name sounds kind of scary, I know. But it's actually pretty intuitive. It's almost like writing in plain English. You're just asking the database questions.
Oh, interesting. So it's not like lines of code you have to decipher?
Not at all. The basics are fairly easy to pick up.
Okay, so SQL for relational databases. Got it. Wow, we've covered a lot already. Programming languages, data structures and algorithms, design patterns, databases, SQL. What else is left on this back-end roadmap?
We're almost there. The last big piece is web frameworks. These are basically tool sets that help you build web applications faster and more efficiently.
Wait, frameworks? I thought we were going to talk about those in the front-end section.
Yeah. They exist in both front-end and back-end, and they serve a similar purpose, giving you pre-built components and structure so you don't have to start from scratch every time.
Okay, so it's all about efficiency.
Exactly. On the back-end, frameworks help you do things like handle requests from the front-end, process data, interact with the database, all those essential functions.
So it's like having a prefab house kit instead of having to chop down your own trees and make your own bricks.
Yeah, exactly. You get a head start, and it also helps make sure your code is well organized and follows best practices.
I'm all for that. So what are some popular back-end frameworks?
Well, it depends on the programming language you've chosen. For Python, Django is a popular choice. For Java, there's Spring Boot.
Mm-hmm.
And for JavaScript, you've got express.js. There are tons of options.
Wow, it seems like every language has its own little ecosystem of frameworks.
It's true. But at the end of the day, they all kind of do similar things, so don't get too caught up in the specific names. Just pick one that aligns with your language and dive in.
Okay, so pick a language, then pick a framework for that language.
Exactly.
Got it. Now, the video kept mentioning APIs. What are those all about?
APIs. Application Programming Interfaces. They're like the messengers between the front end and the back end. They allow the two sides to communicate with each other.
So, like, when you click a button on a website, the API is what tells the back end what to do.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. It's how the front end requests data, sends information, that kind of thing.
I see. So APIs are essential for any kind of interaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of those back-end frameworks are specifically designed to make building APIs easier.
Okay, APIs. Got it. So how long does all this back-end stuff take to learn? We've covered a lot of ground.
Well, if you've got a good grasp of your chosen language and you've got some experience with databases, you could probably become pretty comfortable with a back-end framework in about 2 months, give or take.
2 months. Okay. But that's on top of the 2 months for the language, right?
Yeah.
And all that other stuff, data structures, algorithms.
Yeah. Realistically, if you want a solid back-end foundation, you're looking at around 12 months of dedicated learning.
12 months. Okay, that's a commitment, but it doesn't sound impossible.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a race. The key is to be consistent, put in the time, and you'll get there.
All right, I'm ready to tackle this back-end beast, but we're not done yet, right? We still have the whole front-end world to explore.
That's right. The side that users see, where all the visual magic happens. Ready to dive into that next?
Absolutely. Let's get creative.
All right. So front end. This is where we make things look good. This is the fun part, right?
Yeah, this is where we can unleash our inner artist, make those websites pop. But first, we got to cover the basics. The video talks about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Yeah, the holy trinity of front-end development.
So what does each one do? I mean, break it down for someone who's never touched code before.
Okay, imagine you're building a house. HTML is the structure. It's like the walls, the floors, the roof. It's the skeleton of your web page.
Okay, so HTML is like the blueprint. It defines what goes where.
Exactly. It tells the browser, hey, this is a heading, this is a paragraph, this is an image. It's actually pretty straightforward to learn. You could probably get the basics down in a week or two, even less.
Nice. So if HTML is the structure, what about CSS? Where does that fit in?
CSS is all about the style.
Yeah.
It's like choosing the paint color for your walls, picking out the furniture, the decorations, making your house look nice.
So CSS is about aesthetics, making things pretty.
Yeah, but it's more than just that. It's about user experience too. Making sure the website is easy to read, that it looks good on different screen sizes.
Right, because nobody wants to squint at their phone trying to read tiny text.
Exactly. CSS lets you control all that, the colors, fonts, the layout, how elements are positioned on the page.
Okay, CSS, style and usability. Got it. And then JavaScript, what does that bring to the party?
JavaScript is what brings it all to life. It's the interactivity, the animations, the dynamic elements that respond to the user. When you click a button, something happens. That's JavaScript at work.
Oh, cool. So JavaScript makes it dynamic.
Exactly. It lets you add all those cool features that make websites interactive and engaging.
That's definitely where things get interesting. But I bet that's also where people get stuck, right? Like trying to wrap their heads around how to actually write the code.
Yeah, JavaScript can be a bit of a hurdle. It's a different way of thinking. It's not just about arranging elements on a page. It's about defining their behavior.
Right. It's logic, not just design.
Exactly. But don't be discouraged. It's like learning any new skill. The more you practice, the better you get.
Okay, so we've got our core trio, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Are we good to go? Is that all we need to know for front end?
Well, those are the essentials, for sure. But the video also mentions some other stuff that can give you a leg up.
Oh, like what? Give me the inside scoop.
Okay, well, one thing is TypeScript.
TypeScript, what is that? Like a special kind of JavaScript?
Yeah, kind of. Think of it as JavaScript with superpowers. It helps you catch errors, write cleaner code, and it's becoming super popular with companies, especially for big projects.
So TypeScript makes you a more efficient and reliable coder. I like that.
Exactly. Then there are UI frameworks. Remember we talked about frameworks for backend?
Yeah, those tools that make development faster.
Right. Well, there are frameworks for the front end too. They help you build user interfaces, all the buttons, menus, forms, that kind of stuff.
So instead of coding every single element from scratch, you can use pre-built components.
Yeah, exactly. It saves you a ton of time and effort. And it helps make sure your designs are consistent across the whole website.
Consistency is good. So which UI frameworks are the big ones?
Right now, the most popular one is React. It's super in demand. If you want a front-end job, knowing React is pretty much essential.
Okay, React, noted. But remember, before React, we need JavaScript, maybe a little TypeScript, right?
Yeah, those are the building blocks. You got to have a good foundation.
Got it. What else is there on the front-end side?
Well, the video also talks about ways to improve your CSS skills. Because, let's be honest, CSS can get pretty messy, especially when you're working on a big project.
Oh, tell me about it. I've definitely had those moments where I'm just like, what have I done looking at my CSS file?
I think we've all been there. So, one way to make CSS more manageable is to use something called a CSS preprocessor.
A preprocessor? What's that?
It basically lets you write your CSS in a more organized way, using things like variables and functions, and then it compiles it into regular CSS that the browser can understand.
Oh, that sounds helpful. So it's like writing a rough draft and then having it automatically polished up.
Yeah, kind of. There are a few different preprocessors out there, like Sass is a popular one.
It is. Okay, I'll check that out. What other CSS tricks are there?
Another approach is to use a CSS framework. These frameworks give you pre-written styles and components that you can just plug into your project. They help you achieve a consistent look and feel without having to code everything from scratch.
So it's like having a library of pre-designed buttons and menus and stuff.
Exactly. Bootstrap is a really popular one.
Yeah.
But there's also Tailwind CSS, which is newer, but gaining a lot of traction, especially for React projects.
So Bootstrap for the classics, Tailwind CSS for the cutting edge.
You got it.
Okay, CSS preprocessors, CSS frameworks, noted. Anything else? My brain is getting full.
Haha, almost there. The last big thing the video emphasizes is automated testing. This is a really valuable skill, especially as you get into more senior developer roles.
Automated testing. So like the code can test itself.
It's not magic. But yeah, you basically write code that tests your main code to make sure it's working correctly. It helps catch bugs early and ensures that everything functions as expected.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's like having a robot QA team that's constantly checking your work.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. It saves a ton of time and leads to much higher quality code in the long run.
Got it. Automated testing. I'm guessing there are tools for that too.
Of course. Jest and Vitest are popular ones. They're pretty similar, so if you learn one, it's easy to pick up the other.
Just, Vitest, check. Okay, what else? Is there anything else?
Just one more thing. The video ends with what I think is the coolest topic. Meta frameworks.
Meta frameworks. That sounds intense. What are those?
Then think of them as frameworks on top of frameworks. They build upon existing UI frameworks, like React, and give you even more power and flexibility.
Whoa, so they're like the ultimate power-up.
Yeah. They can really help you build super complex and performant applications. For React, the most popular meta framework is Next.js.
Next.js. That sounds like a secret weapon.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
It's a great skill to have, especially if you're aiming for those high-level developer jobs.
Okay, Next.js. Noted. Wow, we just went deep into the front-end world. It's a lot to process.
It is. And it's okay to feel overwhelmed. You don't have to learn everything at once. Just focus on the core languages first. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then branch out from there.
Okay, that's reassuring. So how long does it take to, become proficient in front-end development?
The video estimates around 6 months for the core stuff.
6 months, that's actually shorter than the back-end timeline. But I'm guessing that doesn't include all the extra stuff like TypeScript, frameworks, testing.
Right. Those are things you can pick up as you go. They're what really help you stand out and move into those more advanced roles.
Challenge accepted. I'm ready to conquer the front-end world. But before we wrap up, let's take a step back and look at the big picture, right? We've covered so much ground today.
We have. From the basic building blocks to those super advanced tools, it's been quite a journey.
I'm definitely feeling more knowledgeable, but it's a lot to remember.
I know.
Yeah.
So before we send you back to YouTube, maybe let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways, just to make sure everything sinks in.
Yeah, good idea. Let's solidify that knowledge. All right, let's rewind and hit those key points one more time, just to make sure it all sticks.
Sounds good. So we started with front end or back end, right? Front end, that's all the stuff the user actually sees, the interface, the visuals, all that. And for that, you've got your core languages, HTML for structure, CSS for style, and then JavaScript to make it interactive, make things happen on the page.
Right, and we talked about how TypeScript can kind of level up that JavaScript, make it more robust, which companies love, and then those UI frameworks like React, which I gotta say, even just knowing the name now makes me feel a little more in the loop.
I know, right? It's like you're speaking the language already. And then on the back end side, it's all about the stuff happening behind the scenes, all that logic and data processing. And there, the first big choice is your programming language. Python, known for being beginner friendly, Java, the workhorse of the enterprise world, or JavaScript, which, well, it can do back end, but it's got its quirks.
Right. It's like it learned back end later in life, so it's still figuring things out.
Exactly. And then there's databases, which are, well, massive. You've got your relational databases, like MySQL, all about structure and order, good for things like financial data. And then NoSQL databases, like MongoDB, more flexible, good for things that are constantly changing, like social media feeds.
Right, and we can't forget about SQL, the language for talking to those relational databases. I was intimidated by that at first, but you made it sound way more approachable.
It's really not as scary as it seems. Once you get the basics, it's actually pretty cool how you can pull specific information from those massive data sets. And then, of course, we have back-end frameworks, just like on the front end, giving you those pre-built tools to make development faster and more efficient.
And those APIs, the messengers between front end and back end, making sure everything talks to each other properly. It's amazing how it all comes together.
It is. It's a complex system. But breaking it down like this, hopefully it feels a little less daunting now.
Definitely. I feel like I've got a much clearer picture of the web development landscape now. So what now? What's our next step?
Well, I'd say go back to that YouTube video armed with all this new knowledge. Review the key points. See if anything jumps out at you now that you've got this deeper understanding. And then start experimenting.
Right. Pick a language, maybe try out a tutorial, just get your hands dirty and see what you can do.
Exactly. Even an hour a day can make a huge difference over time. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn.
Couldn't agree more. All right, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into web development. Hopefully you're feeling inspired and ready to take on the challenge.
And remember, technology is always changing, so keep learning, keep exploring, and most importantly, have fun.
Until next time, happy coding.